extensively experimented with magical mushrooms for about a year and a half.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Josh with RiseAboveHealth, and I'm here today with my first guest on the platform, Peter Klozscko, aka Hungarian Experiment. He's been a content creator for years now, making all kinds of interesting videos, experimenting with the fundamentals of health performance and optimization, and doing really interesting experiments for the world to see. And he's picked up quite a following in the process. So from things like stomach vacuums to live streaming mushrooms on YouTube to documenting the basics like weight loss, Peter is a really unique figure in the social media landscape. And not only that, Peter has also heavy content creation experience in the real estate space and works for the well-known Canadian real estate expert named Matt McKeever, and is a member of the Problems or Profits team. Adding to that, Peter is also CEO and founder of Social Mediation Management and Content Creation. I've been a fan, and we've been communicating over Instagram for a few years now, and I'm really excited to have Peter on to talk about his experience in becoming the Hungarian Experiment, as well as his thoughts on the current state of health in today's world and what he's got going on in general. Pete, how's it going?
Good, Josh. I appreciate you having me on here, and I appreciate the kind words in the intro there. That was awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah. I told you I was going to tee it off for you.
You made me blush a little bit.
I did. I told you. That's why I reached out to you. I'm like, what's the deets? Let me get it going. Cool. So I've got a list of questions for you, and we'll just have kind of an open discussion. So with that introduction, how did you start out getting into health optimization?
Yeah, so I think like most young men, you want to push yourself and you want to figure out like what are your limits, what are your capabilities. So I remember, starting even in the gym or asking my mom to like take me to the athletic club. That was like one of the big gyms across Canada. And I remember I had to apply, like they had like a limit. You have to be like 12 or 13 years old before you could get a gym membership. And I was like a year younger than that. And they still managed to work something out where I could get in there. And I didn't do any kind of like free weights and stuff. I was just playing around on the machines, just trying to learn. But I always knew that I wanted to, be physically active, be, jacked. Like, of course, we all look up to Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all those guys. So I always knew I wanted to, as I grow older, there's just something that when you have a great physique, it just kind of commands the room. Like you can't take that away from someone. So I was like, all right, I need to learn this stuff. I want to learn this stuff. And then as it kind of advanced, I remember, in high school, I was, playing football, captain of the swim team, and I was doing all these sports. And even though I was extremely physically active, I always had like a slight level of fat on me. Like other guys around me used to be super lean and cut, and they'd have like a six pack. And I was like, man, what more do I have to do? Like, how can I get like a six pack? Like how does this happen? And,
Right.
I read all this stuff and I tried all the different diets and fads and everything. And then it wasn't till, 20, 21 years old where I really started experimenting with intermittent fasting. And I started seeing some great results. And like I was shredding fat, but also like putting on muscle very easily. And after that, I was like, oh, wow, like I want to experiment with more stuff and really apply this and make this part of like potentially like my personality and what I do, that people can trust me because I extensively experiment with different health and fitness stuff. So I had a lot of my friends and coworkers always look up to me, and from there it just kind of spiraled on till 2015 when I was 25 years old, or probably the year before. I was like, I think I should make a YouTube channel. And that's where I started to get real in depth and really started documenting and going nuts on it.
So the intermittent fasting was kind of your first foray into trying any kind of like experiment on yourself or with your diet or anything like that.
Yeah, that's where I would say I really started to experiment with fringe concepts. So again, I always followed what the typical like, oh, you need to eat less carbs, or you need to, eat more, or
Yeah.
eat
The
less
pseudo
fat, or
dieting advice. Right.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
I remember back when I was, again, like 20, 21, and I was like, I can't remember the exact book that I read right now, but they discussed fasting in it. And I was like, fasting? Like, why would I fast? Like, if I fast, I'm trying to put on muscle. Like, why would this even be a thing? And then YouTube was just really starting to get traction at that time. So I remember like searching around and there wasn't that much information. Like, I remember and this was even probably a year or two after that when I was just questioning it. And I seen like the Hodge twins slightly like mentioning it and discussing it. And I was like, okay.
Oh, they mentioned you?
No, the intermittent fasting in general.
Oh, they mentioned it. Okay,
yeah. And I was like, well, it's hard to tell. These guys look abnormally like swole. So it's like, are they juicing or are they like legit about intermittent fasting? So that's when, that I'd say is the first fringe thing that I did, where back then there was like no real scientific information. There wasn't people talking about it versus like nowadays it's just like the thing people do. So.
Right. And that was like 2008, something like that?
Yeah. So around like 2010, 2011, I remember I was working in an underground gold mine and I was like starting to apply intermittent fasting when I was working down there. And
it's easy not to eat when you're in a cave. Yeah.
Yeah. I was working like 10-hour shifts and just going to the gym. And I was like, all right, let me apply this. Like, my life is very structured. Let me like try to implement this. And I started doing it. I was like, whoa, like the results were pretty drastic from everything else I'd been testing and trying previously.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, intermittent fasting is great. For anybody who doesn't know, it's basically you consign all of your eating to a very short window during the day. So that's, typically a 6 to 8 hour eating window. And then you fast for 16 to 18 hours. And basically what that does is deplete your bloodstream of any glucose that's lingering, right? Which would be that, unused energy. Typically, if you have excess glucose, it's going to get, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but typically if you have excess glucose, it's going to get stored as fat or, all different kinds of things. So, so that's great. So what led you to create the Hungarian Experiment brand from there?
Yeah, so I don't know what it is. Like, so my mom came to Canada when she was pregnant with me. Like, I'm 100% Hungarian blood, but born here in Canada. And around the age of like 2 to 4 years old, she met my stepdad and, had my sister. And he is a third generation Polak. So I had this very drastic childhood where I was like, my mom and my grandparents and my aunt and uncle were very traditional, like fresh off the boat, basically, like very traditional culture roots, still eating the same type of foods, like, and very ingrained in that traditional mindset. And then my stepdad, because he was third generation, and even like his mother, I could just see like they were very, I guess you could say, indoctrinated into the North American lifestyle, the same, like typical way of eating. Like, not to shit on her or anything, but I remember like my grandma, who's like my stepdad's mom, like the kind of mindset, like, drop me off at the front of the restaurant when we pull up, and then you have to go get the car and pick me up after. And that like just made me see this dichotomy in life. And then as I was growing up as a child and a teen, I would see all my, like other students in my class and friends, and I would be very interested in like their lifestyles and what are they doing and what are they eating and how's it different. And I just remember always kind of questioning this stuff. And then fast forward to when I quit the mine when I was like 22 to 23 years old. I was already starting to experiment with intermittent fasting and really pushing it to its limits. And like this name, the Hungarian Experiment.
Had you started the channel before you quit the mine?
No. So I started the channel when I was 25. So in 2015. But I remember when I was 22, 23 years old, like this Hungarian Experiment, like there's just something about it that was like, man, if I'm going to do something online, I'm going to play, like, I don't want to just be Peter Klozscko. Like, I want to be extra, you know what I mean? And that name kept coming to me, and I started when I was in the mine, I was watching a lot of these YouTubers online, and even the couple years between that, and I was watching a lot of these fitness people were just vlogging and documenting their typical day to day. And then they'd say, like, you know what, I started doing this exercise like a year ago. I started eating this way, and this is why, like, I now have these types of results. And I was like, but how do I like scientifically find that? Like, where do I go back? How do I find that? There's no structure to this. It's just you're sharing your day-to-day life. Like, so I was like, man, I think I can do this differently and be like not a character, but be myself, but also be a little bit extra with this name, and that would garner attention for me while I'm just documenting myself while I'm already experimenting with these fringe concepts that I'm interested in. Like stomach vacuums was something that I wanted to do anyways, and I was like, yo, here's the perfect excuse to do it. And it got me to get a bunch of attention and, credibility and legitimacy, as I try to say to a lot of like my social media clients who like, this is what I see the internet is for, is to like, it's like a life resume where you get to share this stuff and build credibility and legitimacy with it. So,
yeah, those stomach vacuum videos really blew up, didn't they?
yeah. Yeah, the one video has over like 2 million views, and it still gets like hundreds of views like a week, maybe even daily. I don't check my stuff too much. I like quit YouTube a couple of years back now, and just to kind of focus on building my business and stuff, and kind of getting away from what I feel is a lot more of a toxic digital world that has kind of evolved recently. But
Peter, you're gonna make me go. Don't make me go down that tangent. We will go there.
Yeah, maybe we won't get negative on it. But yeah, I was just like, I need to get away from this. I don't want to participate in this stuff. And but yeah, the stomach vacuums pop pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So besides the stomach vacuums, what were some of your other favorite experiments that you've done?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say like I have a particular favorite. They're all like little babies to me that I've developed and grown. And I think we kind of lightly discussed this beforehand, but the stomach vacuums are awesome because they got me a bunch of attention, and it's something that I can show that I did and documented the whole process. So it's like something that I can, again, show to my clients, be like, yo, see how I did this. And now it's like locked in history forever. Like no one can take that away from me unless, YouTube pulls my whole channel down or the internet burns down. But there were some experiments that like, I ate 10 grams of magical mushrooms live on YouTube. That was me just kind of sharing. And I didn't expect to get any kind of crazy traction on it. I just wanted to see something that I wanted to see on the internet. Like I always question mushrooms, and I saw a lot of people's, accounts of what they've done written, but I never saw like what the actual experience was like. So I did it because that's what I would want to see when I was growing up and trying to figure out like what happens when you're on this substance. So I was like, I got a lot out of that personally just by sharing it and having that out there openly and honestly. And then I've done a bunch, but one of the ones that I don't think got enough attention is these neurohacking experiments that I did, where I did a buddy's 3-month cognitive enhancement program, and I got EEG brain scan readings done before and after. And a lot of the programming was just like taking nootropic supplements, taking just general supplements like fish oils and stuff, doing a lot of like mindfulness training. So I'd be like sitting there working on the computer, and every half an hour, I'd have an alarm that goes off that just, I would then do a body scan from my toes all the way up to my head, and did meditation and a bunch of stuff like that. And you can see clear changes in the neural pathways in my brain from the EEG brain scan readings. And like that was one that I was like, man, this is powerful. Like if people just knew the benefits of this stuff, but it didn't get much attention. But that's probably another one that's kind of up there. That's a baby that I'm proud of, but he's kind of hiding in the background.
Sure. What kind of changes did you notice with the EEGs?
Well, that's what's interesting, is that I didn't physically or mentally see a difference, but like in the actual brain scans, like I'd have to pull it up now because it was like 4 or 5 years ago now, but you can see clear changes into different levels and readings within these brain scans. And I got videos where I cover it all. But yeah, that was one where I was like, holy crap, like I didn't expect it to be like that noticeable and that much of a change. So that was pretty interesting. And the carnivore diet, I really enjoyed that. I really thought I was gonna potentially have some negative effects with it, but I did 100 days where I only ate meat and literally to the point where it's like not even pepper on my food. Like it was just salt, water, and meat, bone broth. And I got
the Jordan Peterson diet now.
Yeah, the Jordan Peterson diet. Made a video on that.
Yeah,
I ate like Jordan Peterson for 50 days. But I got a blood test done on day like 71 or 72, and everything was on point. And even my like cholesterol ratio levels, when you go in, at least from the articles that I looked at, I'm in the cholesterol
the
ratio
HDL,
levels.
LDL.
Yeah. And the ratios between the two is actually at a point where if you're at this level, you're like reversing heart disease. And a lot of people have this belief, and it's probably less fringe now that so many of these, like, you know, Paul Saladino and Sean Baker are pushing, and a lot more people are getting on it. But at the time, it was like, was this bad for you? Is this good for you? All my followers and people on Instagram were like, you're going to die, and this is going to be bad for you. And I was like, yo, my blood levels are on point after doing this for 2.5 months. So obviously probably need a lot more testing to say anything legitimately, but that opened my eyes to that, where I was like, damn, do you really need like fruits and vegetables?
Right. I mean, it's important to ask the questions, not because the answer is no and that it's wrong, but you have to ask the question to know the answer, right? Because you could always do things better. Obviously in the West right now, we don't have optimal health outcomes across pretty much every demographic. So I mean, obviously something we're doing is not working, you know, as a culture at the moment. But yeah, that's cool. I'd be curious to see some of the blood tests. And I think I watched the video a while back, but I'll have to go back and take a look at it. Yeah, no, those are all great. I actually remember I caught a couple of those mushroom videos live, and I think you uploaded to WeedTube once or twice.
So what's actually interesting, so I did a bunch. Like I did it, what I say is I extensively experimented with magical mushrooms for about 1.5 years. And what I did for the first 6 months is I was just microdosing and sharing of that in the form of vlogs. And no problems, nothing. They didn't pull down, they didn't question me, I didn't get flagged or anything. And then I was like, okay, like, not to push it with YouTube, but I'm pushing this substance for myself. Like, let's see what it's like to, you know, record myself while I'm on like a normal dose, like 3.5 grams, like your average type dose. And again, nothing, no problems. And then I did like a 7-gram live stream where I just I shared myself like live on YouTube. It was like a 3.5-hour live stream. And again, no problems for like 1.5 weeks. And YouTube actually started pushing it. People were like commenting like, why is YouTube recommending this to me? I was like watching a fishing video or something. And I was like, this is crazy. And yeah, to the point where I think I had like, I was about to hit 1 million views on it. And then I can't remember the exact order of events, but I did the 10-gram one about a month or so after that. And then my 7-gram one got flagged and got pulled down, and I couldn't post for about 2 weeks because I got a strike on my channel. And but the 10-gram one stayed up, or it was something like this, right? Where it just didn't make sense how this stuff was happening. And then
7 grams is offensive, 10 grams is not. So
apparently it's is it godly dose that I think Terrence McKenna says, or a heroic dose? Yeah, heroic dose, and I called the 10-gram like a godly dose. But
I think there's different doses, right? So there's like a recreational dose, and then there's like a health benefit, there's a therapeutic dose, and then there's, like you said, a godly dose, or just like a blast kind of a thing.
So yeah, and then I got like another strike, and I was like, man, like one more strike, and your channel's like completely pulled down. What if you get three? So I was like, I wouldn't care if it was only the mushroom stuff, but I had all these years of fasting and the neurohacking and all this stuff. And actually, the neurohacking was why I got into mushrooms in the first place. But not to go off on too much of a tangent here, but yeah, so I started getting striked, and I was like, okay, I got to pull all this stuff down or risk losing my channel. And I was like, well, where can I let this content live if someone does want to go see it? So uploaded it to the WeedTube. I also did BitChute. So if anyone listening does want to go check these out, go to my website, and under experiments, like scroll down, you'll find magic mushrooms. And then I have them literally like in chronological order of like, literally which days and stuff I was doing, and you can go watch the different videos. But yeah, they're all
at HungarianExperiment.com.
Yeah, Hungarian Experiment or the HungarianExperiment.com. I think it's the HungarianExperiment.com, but yeah, go into the experiments tab and you'll see like the Wim Hof, like intermittent fasting, all the different stuff. But yeah, go click on the magical mushroom and psychedelic experiments.
Just yes, just some advertising for some old but good content.
Mm-hmm.
How about the growth hormone experiment? You did that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I forget what the background on that one was.
Actually, yeah, so that's the one I was very proud of. So I have this theory, and I actually challenged some doctors out there, like Dr. Bio Lane Norton, Dr. Eric Sudicki, who's actually like within my city here. But one of the reasons I continue to do intermittent fasting, one, I just enjoy it and it makes my lifestyle easy. But two, very early on, I saw this scientific study, and this is in videos I've shared, so you can go check it out. But there is a 1,500 to 2,000% increase in your growth hormone levels in men when you fast for 20 to 24 hours. So my mind goes like, okay, well, what's the benefits of growth hormone? So it's like, if I enhance my growth hormone levels naturally, is this not going to benefit like muscle growth as well as a bunch of other physiological benefits? So I, here in Canada, we were discussing this earlier, but it's very hard to get like kind of scientific testing done. Like if I go to the doctor and ask for a blood test, he's gonna be like, well, why? I'm gonna be like, well, I want to see if I'm in a healthy range. He's like, okay, I can do this. And I'm like, okay, so if I want to go get another one done in 3 months, is that possible? He's like, well, we'll see when the results come back. If the results are fine, like I'm not going to get you to go to another blood test. So I actually went to several different doctors. The one finally suggested I go check out a naturopathic doctor, and I went to a couple of them, but I think they all thought that I was just trying to do this to take steroids and monitor my levels. But I finally had one who was actually wanting to listen to me, and I explained this to her that I want to see what my growth hormone levels are, and then start to experiment with fasting to see like, okay, is my growth hormone levels lower like when I'm only 6 hours fasted, and then what happens at 12 hours fasted or like 18 hours fasted. So I have these videos where I got urine analysis tests done. So I would like piss in a cup and then sent it off to a lab halfway across the country. Now, unfortunately, that lab's not doing it anymore because I'd be doing it like crazy to really truly see. And It's been a while.
Pissing into lots of cups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so what I did is I took this urine. What I did is I did a perfect month. So in April of like 2016 or 2017, I did all the things in life that I believe optimize your hormones as naturally as possible. I was not lifting extremely heavy. I was doing like offsetted days, like a heavy day, kind of a volume day, a heavy day, because I think too much stress on the body, it can negatively affect you if you're constantly lifting extremely heavy all the time. I was trying to live a stress-free lifestyle, trying to get great sleep. I was going to the sauna, like I was shooting for 2 to 3 hours a week. So whether that's in 20-minute sprints or 1 hour, like I was just trying to make sure I got 2 to 3 hours throughout the week. I was doing intermittent fasting daily, where I'd fast for anywhere from 18 to 22 hours. And I think that was basically all the parameters of my life that I believe I could affect at that time. There might be 1 or 2 things I'm missing there. But after this perfect month, I then did over the course of 3 weeks, every Wednesday, I did a urine growth hormone analysis test. And, the first one I made sure, like, when I woke up in the morning, I was like 18 hours fasted. Because I even started fasting earlier in the day. So I'd be at this, like, the peak of what I think my growth hormone levels. I didn't lift heavy the day before. And I went to the sauna the night before and made sure I had great sleep. So I pissed in this cup on the one Wednesday. Next week, I made sure to mimic the exact same results and kept everything consistent. And then the third week was actually, we have May 2-4 weekend, like Victoria Day weekend here in Canada. And my grandparents came down. I had some alcohol with them. And I was like, you know what? Since I'm kind of lightly changing the parameters here, I'm not going to fast for 18 hours. I'm going to piss in the cup at 8 hours in the morning. And I'm going to go to the gym the night before and I'm going to work out as fucking hard as I can. And you can go see these tests on my YouTube channel. But the first day, and it's like a graph that shows the average range that you are in for most males. And it's measuring the creatinine that's in your urine. So I think there is, people could call bullshit or flaws, but basically the first one, I was 93%. So again, this a level of if you're in the middle, you're good. Then if you're between these levels, you're fine. And then it's if you're too far on this side or too far on that side, they're making claims about that. So I was all the way on the right, 94%, compared to the average male. And I had 3,600 or 3,700 deciliters of creatinine in my urine. And the next week I was just slightly higher than that. So I was at 94% and at 3,700. And then the third week I was down to 300. And I was at 30%, which they still say is good, but it's if you're barely on the level, to me, that's not good. And the naturopathic doctor called me. She's like, what the hell did you do? He's like, this is crazy that you got you're at such these high levels, naturally, if what you're saying here, Peter, is true, and then to drop down that drastically. And I was I honestly believe the biggest effects were because of the fasting. So when I look at this, my mind goes, okay, if every day and then you eat, you're just kind of at this level versus every day you're kind of spiking and maybe you're dropping down, but you're kind of staying at this higher consistent level, that long term, this is going to be better for my mind, my body, muscle growth, lifestyle, all these types of factors. So this is what I personally believe. And I've done a few other of these growth hormone tests where a year later I mimicked it, but I didn't do the perfect month before. But then I did and I still got almost to the exact same levels. I was at 3,500 PG/GCR, whatever it is. And then I did I wanted to show how I think alcohol can really be negative for you. So I did the typical college weekend where I'm even showing myself how much I'm drinking and stuff. And again, my levels crashed back down to 200 or 300. So that stuff, I'd love to actually redo and remimic those experiments. And now that we're talking about it, I'm kind of getting fired up. I might do these again.
Yeah, man, let's go. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one that was now that we bring it up, that I'm very proud of. And was one of my first forays that I thought was going to be get me a lot of attention. But again, that's another one the neurohacking, where it's if it wasn't just eating huge cheat days and doing crazy fasting for 4 days, it's no one seemed to care when it actually came down to results and stuff.
Well, that makes sense, because growth hormone levels is not something that your average person necessarily, your sort of couple times a week YouTube viewer is going to have interest in. It's sort of I would say a clinical interest, and then sort of people who are heavily into exercise science and endocrinology and things like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's definitely a one of a kind deal that you set up. And I'm actually curious if you would consider doing something with that data, and or let's say you do it again, would you consider trying to get it, I don't know, maybe if not published somewhere, something along those lines, get it more visible, I guess.
Yeah, so that's definitely something I'd be interested in for sure. I know that the big reason for myself that I didn't continue doing them is because they weren't cheap. Like just to go visit the naturopathic
Totally.
doctor each time was like $90. And back then I was like working, like I was like a server at a restaurant. So I was like, and then each test was like $190 for me to do. So like those 3 tests plus the naturopathic doctor was like $500. And I wasn't making any money off YouTube at the time. So I'm like, shit, I gotta like really balance this with how often I can do it with my finances. And the last time I checked, now that I can afford to do a bunch of these, like that same lab doesn't do this type of study, but I would 100% be interested in remimicking these types of experiments. So again, now that we're chatting about it, I might, when I do decide to make my comeback to YouTube, really extensively experiment with this. And yeah, if you have any insights on where I could take these results that I got in the past, I'd definitely be interested in looking at that. And hey, if you want to even do like one podcast where we analyze those results, like that'd be something I'm interested in as well too. But yeah, I see myself as like this human experiment, this human guinea pig. Like I'm already passionate about this stuff and want to see it for myself. So it's like I'm don't want to do anything that would make me believe I'm going to hurt myself or experiment within, injecting myself with something that, for the sake of just experimenting and seeing. But like, to me, this is something that I'd love to see.
Yeah. I think fasting's pretty kosher. So
yeah.
Great for gains, it sounds like.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd be curious. Another thing you mentioned, it was the creatinine levels was the primary biomarker. I have to look up and see. 2 things come to mind. One, I wonder if there's some sort of serum biomarker. I haven't done any growth hormone testing, so I would think that there's some sort of hematological equivalent, or for blood testing. And then also, if you can't get it up there, you can probably get it down here. So
yeah.
Whenever the Citadel gets rolling down to Texas, if that ever does, if and when that transpires, you could look into that. Maybe get some like international travel insurance or something. I'm just spitballing. But.
Well, hell, I'd just come to the States just to even try that stuff. I got the results here if we wanted to take a quick peek at it, but definitely don't.
Yeah, you want to pull it up?
Sure. Yeah, so I got my screen share, so you just have to
this part's for the nerds. So if you guys want to just go ahead and click the timestamps and move forward, you can do that, or you can just rock with us here. And I'll say another thing while you're pulling it up. So I'm a big proponent of online in the US. Most states you can do direct to consumer lab testing, and there are a number of websites, and there's more and more companies popping up all the time that do this. Basically, they contract with these major laboratories or they contract with providers, and basically you can just go online on the website, buy whatever tests they have available, right? It's limited to what they have in their inventory of tests. But basically you just get a requisition form with some healthcare provider's name on it, like a Dr. Ramos or something like that. And you can just go ahead and, you're paying cash, but you can go ahead and walk right in and just get your labs done. You don't have to go to the doctor's office for a referral. And that's my preferred method. So
yeah, I feel like nowadays too, compared to hell, it's almost like 6 years ago now, that there's probably a lot more options because a lot more people are getting into that biohacking and self-study versus just kind of blindly trusting doctors. So yeah, now that we're talking about it, it's kind of getting me fired up to redo these all again.
Yeah, that's a part of my hidden motivation for having this interview.
You sneaky bugger. But yeah, if you hit the screen share at the bottom there, I got the stuff pulled up. So this is I guess once you share it up there,
I got it.
So this is literally like my urine from the test. So like it came in like this kind of styrofoam box, and they gave me everything, and it was instructions on how to do it. You got to fill out a sheet. And here's me like kind of posing with my this from the vlog, but here's the results. So this is like the first one here. So as you can see, like the result. And how did you pronounce this?
Creatinine.
I'm not even sure the naturopathic doctor knew how to call it and what to say. But as you can see here, it's like the GH overnight collection, creatinine normalize. And as you can see here, like to me, this is just insane that the range for a healthy male is between here to here. Like, get out of here. Like, that's
a
such
huge range.
Yeah, it's so drastic. Now I can understand like if you're fluctuating between those during the day. And again, that's where I believe why I potentially dropped down so much. But this was the first one, was 3,500, 94th percentile. The next one was, sorry, I gotta zoom out here. Do this again.
This they have really huge reference ranges for just about every test. So
it's ridiculous.
They're trying to account for the entire population, so you're going to have a huge spread.
Yeah, and most of the population's ridiculous. Because that's when I did the blood test too. I was like reading stuff, and they're like, yeah, actually cholesterol levels are comparing you to the average person, and the average person is like overweight and not in healthy ranges. So it's like it's more adjusting you to the average, not what's actually optimal. But this was like the second week that I did there. Again, 3,700 in the 94 percentile, and then this was where I did it only after the 8 hours fasted. Yeah.
Was this after the alcohol and all that, or?
Well, that was just on the weekend. So like I drank it on the weekend and then still had 3 days where I was eating like clean and healthy. And, but I just worked out heavy the night before. And then,
so this is after like a weekend of partying and then like getting your habits back together and getting 8 hours of sleep. You still get this huge crash.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it a weekend of partying. Like I had a few drinks with my grandparents, right? Like that wasn't crazy. So, and this is how big of a drop. And again, I believe it's because of the fasting. And then these ones are after. So this is a year later now where I did these alcohol experiments. So you can see I even went up. And this was during the winter time too. So I wasn't getting like vitamin D, and I still had like 95% like growth hormone output or growth hormone compared to the like average male. And then as you see there, this would have been after like 3 days of college binging type deal, right? So yeah, it's just interesting to see that, this stuff gets me like excited and interested and passionate about the stuff. And yeah, it's fun.
I'll tell you what always strikes me about it is if the average person knew just what a difference like their day-to-day actions make and what's going on in their body, they would be shocked and maybe want to pay a bit more attention,
100%. And that's why like when I started really experimenting with intermittent fasting, I thought I was just going to shred fat. I didn't think I was going to be like, in my opinion, putting on noticeable muscle mass that I could clearly see. And that's what started to get me to really start like taking pictures of myself on a regular routine basis and really trying to like document this and trying to figure out where this is all coming from.
Well, thanks for sharing that, man. I got a whole folder full of I got like 50 plus, lab tests from the last couple of years. So, maybe we'll see what we can pull up.
Yeah, just geek out over lab tests.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. So in line with the conversation about, let's say the differences between the Canadian and the U.S. healthcare systems, what do you think, and the comment I just made about the reference ranges, what do you think the healthcare industry has wrong about health in general? Or the scientific community?
Yeah, so this is a tough one to answer, but I personally believe all our societal systems are broken. Our healthcare system's broken, our education system's broken, our food systems are broken, and they're all corrupt. Now, I don't know how to fix that because, like, what do we just start from scratch on everything? Or, the Matt McKeever kind of mind says, go build parallel institutions. But I do believe that when you're building those parallel institutions, the current institutions that have the monopoly are going to try to shut it down, right? They don't want that information out there. So in regards to the healthcare system, I believe our scientific system's broken. And that's what I'm trying to prove and show, or I was trying to prove and show on my YouTube channel for the longest time, that like and I'm actually about halfway through a book that I was writing, but I kind of have to put it on the shelf for a bit. But it's called like The Scientific Narrative, the story of science, why science is weak and why we need to fix it. And I believe anyone, especially like where I've proven like, at least I believe I've proven how these doctors like Dr. Bio Lane, where he came out, he says like growth hormone does nothing for you. Natural growth hormone, don't worry about it. And which to me, I'm like, are you serious? Like, how can you even state that? And then I got into like a Twitter war with some dude out in Winnipeg.
Endogenous growth hormone? You're saying don't worry about it. You're saying don't worry about endogenous growth hormone?
He said, yeah, and he has like an article, and he references like 11 studies within that article, and within it he's stating that he's like, there's no point in trying to focus on trying to naturally increase your growth hormone levels. It's not going to benefit you in one way whatsoever. But the thing is, like, and then again, I was in this kind of like challenging it, because I'm like, I don't believe this. I think you're wrong. And then I got in this kind of Twitter war with this guy from Winnipeg, and he shared this article. So I went through every single reference that he made, with that Dr. Biolane made in this article. And 3 of the main studies that he uses to reference when he's talking about young men in the article, he is referencing studies that are done on 60 to 80-year-old men. The studies are done on 8 to 11 people. Again, there's 3 studies, so there's a bit of fluctuation between the ages and the frequency, but they're all done on old men. They're on these really small sample sizes, and they literally train like one body part, and then they measured that, and then they tried to say that like, oh, see here, like growth hormone, natural growth hormone levels, because we're working out this aren't like, it's just the most flawed shit I've ever seen. And to me, that goes like, okay, so this Dr. Biolane either completely didn't read these studies and he's utilizing them as a reference, or he read them and understands that they're flawed and still used it to justify his article here. And that just gets me deeper, like when I read or hear about like, you know, people saying meat is bad for you, and I'm like, okay, let me go see the study that you're quoting. And the study says like, oh yes, when we did a study on 18,000 people in China or something across the, no, actually it was done on 30 to 40,000 people over an 18-year span. What they did is they gave them a questionnaire at the beginning and a questionnaire at the end. And like, that's the whole point of this, like the whole testing of the study. And when you actually go look at the results from what they found is like, you know, 18% of the meat eaters had like a heart attack, but 20% that were the vegans had like suffered from stroke. Yet the mainstream media article or the doctor or the, you know, educated person who's utilizing this as their justification, it's like they're not mentioning that other stuff. So to me, it's like anyone who's trusting that person who doesn't want or have the time, effort, and energy to go look at these studies for themselves and first educate themselves on how to read these studies and then actually go read the studies and spend, you know, hours reading through it, like they'll never know that this is flawed. So within this book, I'm revealing how like this has happened time and time again. Like when it even comes down to psychedelics with LSD, like politicians, and I believe a big part of it is that like we prop up athletes and actors and celebrities, and they're altruistic in nature. So they're going to say what they think is the best thing for people, but contradict it and do it differently themselves. So when it comes to the scientific system, like it's broken, it's corrupt, there's too much money involved in it, there's no open sourcing, there's no like it's not open, it's very closed. A lot of industry and companies are actually the ones funding these, and there's flaws within it. So what I personally believe how we fix that is by you doing what you're doing, me doing what I'm doing. But we also need like a catalyst. We need a network. We need something that's collecting this information and watching it. And this whole interview is firing me up to get back up onto this stuff that I have to put on the shelf for a while. But it's this concept of human experiments. Like we have this ability now with YouTube where you can document everything you're doing. Like I documented myself for so many years. Show yourself getting these tests done. Show yourself what you're putting in your body, the things that are affecting you and your mind, and all this stuff. And then we can truly see. and we can hopefully collect that data, and not just from 2 of us, but 2,000, 200,000. Imagine like 200,000, we had a catalog of all these people, and we could prove that they were doing things properly. And then we could like single out all the intermittent fasters or single out all the vegans and then see their lab results and actually truly see what's happening versus trusting something that could be extremely flawed or corrupt. And I'm not saying this can't be flawed or corrupt, but it is like a parallel institution where now we can compare from the current scientific system versus like this human experiment system where we can see like, okay, we're getting quite different results here. So like who and what is wrong, and how do we figure out how to like, circle back and do it properly?
Yeah, of course. And, for anybody listening, we're not talking about like cloning people or anything like that. We're just talking about like measuring growth hormone levels and, checking out the effects of different diets on cholesterol. I assume that's the kind of things you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, no, I totally agree. And again, I'm going to be excited. And I know I remembered you had that book in the pipeline. So, I hope it gets finished at some point when you're ready. So besides that, what else might you want to see added to the health space in the next 10 years? We're talking about what's wrong with it. Now we're going to talk about, what you might want to see added to make it better, if that's fair.
Yeah. So if I was leader of Canada and I could make choices and decisions that could actually affect my country, I would want to.
Is there a job opening?
Hopefully, maybe I'll just make one.
Right.
But like the stress and the time and effort and energy and the money I had to spend just to see my natural growth hormone levels, just to get blood tests done, have to jump through hoops, have to, go to several doctors till one would actually listen to me, because I want to optimize myself. Here in Canada, it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? It's nothing about optimization. It's all about just fixing you when you're broken. And that's what I would like to see be done differently, at least here in Canada, where, hey, if we have healthcare, shouldn't we be, telling people like, hey, you come see us once a quarter and we'll do like a full batch of tests, or even the most basic test to see where you're at least. And then you can get these results and sit down with someone who can actually extrapolate the data and show, like how we just pulled up here the growth hormone, like here's the range and here's where you're at. Like, don't you think we should try to do something a little different to get you like at least within a healthy range, or get you kind of on par, or, make good suggestions that you don't have to pay for or go out of your way for. I would love to see that.
Not to mention everything that's outside of the reference range is technically a disease state. So you want to try and catch it before you get there, as opposed to like, like the warning signs are going off, then that's when they'll say something. I've had plenty of doctor's appointments where, and this was before I started really getting into health, right? It was and I'll tell you about the time that I realized that something was up. It was actually my testosterone levels, but I had plenty of doctor's appointments where they would just say, yeah, no, everything's fine. Or like, that's good. I'm like, oh, what about this? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, what does that mean? And then the time that I figured out that something fishy was going on, I was curious about my testosterone levels at the time. It was probably in like 2017, something like that. And so I, got the test run, and, I think the result came back something like 320, 340, something like that. And the reference range for, it varies from like the two major companies out in the US that do blood testing, but it's like Quest and LabCorp. And the reference range, generally speaking, would be like 300 to 800, 300 to 900, or 300 to 1,000, or something like that. And, I was right at the bottom end of the reference range, and he told me it was fine. And, I was talking to a buddy who's also kind of he's not kind of into health. He's very much a health nut as well. We're going to be doing a breakdown of my recent quarterly labs that I just got back, like this week, actually. But so I told him, I was like, he said it was fine. And he was like, well, did you get a copy? And I said, no. And he said, well, what are you doing? Go back and get the labs so you know what it says. And, I went back and I asked for it. And sure enough, it's like right at the bottom, it's like, this is the cutoff. I was like right here. So I was like, this, I don't want to say I was like, this MF lied to me necessarily, but I was like, what? So.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
Sorry you have to go through that. Let's fix it.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't consider it going through anything, but I like knowing the truth, and that pissed me off. So I think we should all, get pissed off for the truth. So, all right. If you could recommend one thing that every person should do every day to get healthier, what would it be and why?
So I'm gonna kind of combine two things to this one, but I think for the basic average person who's just starting is just walk more and focus on your breathing, because I think the walking is more for the physical, because just getting those 10,000 steps type deal in is very important, but focusing on breathing and mindfulness and focusing through breathing through your nose, I find all the time I just naturally result to breathing through my mouth. And I can even find in times of my life when I'm getting stressed or stuff's going on or work's piling up, and it's when I am breathing through my mouth and I'm not thinking about breathing through my nose. So I think even starting to apply things like the Wim Hof type breathing, but just again, focusing on breathing, 4x4 breathing, going for walks and doing that, nose breathing. I think that's where I think most people need to start. Yet they all jump into I'm going to change every aspect of my life first, right? I'm going to start going to the gym and doing 2 hours of cardio. And then 2 weeks later, they're burned out and they hate it. And then they're back on their typical lifestyle.
I'm going to jump into a freezer and then go sit in a fire.
Yeah, legit.
Yeah. 4x4 is breathing. Is that what, box breathing?
I'm not sure.
Was it 4 in,
hold 4 and then 4. Out 4 and hold it? Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Cyclical breathing. Actually, I think the Marines do that to keep calm in stressful situations. So that's a good tip. And yeah. Well, I think that's it. So let everybody know what you're up to, and your social media business, anything else you want to plug. It's open floor for Mr. Klozscko.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you having me on here. If you guys want to follow along me, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Again, I haven't really posted in about almost about 2 years now. I think around October, November will come on 2 years, and just taking a bit of a break, trying to figure out what I really want to be doing and discussing. And I am really just focusing. I see it's my new experiment is building this business. So spent, my 20s trying to develop a lot of skills and knowledge. And I think, when you're in your 20s, that's what you should be doing. Don't worry about the money. Just build as much skills and knowledge as you can and try to figure out what your passions are in life. I read a book called Mastery by Robert Greene. That's when I was working in the gold mine that really changed my mind in regards to what the hell am I doing with my life? And, he really showed there that all these people who accomplished something great, these great men, they weren't geniuses. They weren't better than you and I. They just focused on what they're passionate about. And eventually over time, their passions synergized together into their life task. So I think 20s, and that's what I did. I just focused on building skills and knowledge. And in 30s, I think it's build. So build relationships, foster those relationships, build businesses, create, and do all that. So that's what I've been really focusing on for the last year and a half. I created a social media management and content creation business where we run and manage the Canadian real estate channel, where we have over 85,000 subscribers now. I run and manage several other clients where we run their whole YouTube and social media. They're in the real estate industry, whether mortgage brokers or real estate investors, and they just want a hands-off solution. So we basically take care of everything. We go shoot with them, and I'm really enjoying building that up. We took it to 6 figures within the first few months, and now I'm trying to see if I can get it to about $500,000 in this before I hit 2 years into the business, and then turn it into a 7-figure business. And then from there, I can really see how this can kind of set me up for life. So really just enjoying that. You guys can follow at The Social Mediation on Instagram there. We're not posting too much right now because we're just overwhelmed. Like we're not even marketing and we're getting people coming to us, but very soon we're going to be putting out a bunch of content there. And follow me on Instagram. I'm not trying to grow on Instagram. I'm literally just being myself and sharing how I feel about the world. And that's where you guys can follow and connect with me if you want to, chat or find out where you can find out all these crazy experiments. And I'll give you the links to certain videos if you ask properly.
Awesome, dude. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming on. Like I said, first guest, and definitely one for the books. So. There he is, Peter, the Hungarian experiment. This is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, definitely be having you back on, and we'll be doing more stuff soon. So
thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Josh. This is awesome.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Peter as much as I did. I think we had a blast. So we'll have a lot more guests on in the near future. We've got a stream coming up this weekend. We'll be with Rob at Success Rebellion. And like I said, we're going to have a lot more interesting guests on this channel. So be sure to like, subscribe, very importantly, and leave a comment for the algorithm. Appreciate it, guys, and I'll see you again real soon.